Hey everyone, welcome to another Watercolour and Watch. I am loving doing this series. It's kind of given me the creative freedom to just make something that's not got a lot of pressure added to it. It doesn't matter how it turns out, it doesn't matter if it's good or not, and it just kind of gives me that like little creative freedom to just kind of make something that I want to make and talk about a film or a TV show that I am enjoying. And the last few weeks, me and Red have been watching the Studio Ghibli films with Jackson. He's been really enjoying watching them. It's so cute. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's only 6 months old, but they do really grab his concentration. He really does focus on them. So we've been kind of making our way through all of the films. Have you guys ever had something recommended to you so strongly that the instant reaction is, I don't want to deal with that, I'm not watching it? That's what happened to me with the Studio Ghibli films. For the last 20 years, people have been like, you'd really like Studio Ghibli, you'd really like Studio Ghibli, you would love Studio Ghibli stuff, you should watch the Studio Ghibli films. And I'm like, no, you don't know me. Don't tell me what I should and shouldn't watch. I think because I was always into drawing anime and stuff when I was younger, and even now, people would just automatically just think that that's, what I would be into. And you know what? They were right. And I think that's evidence of when somebody recommends something to you, maybe just give it a go, even if it's just 15 minutes just to see if you would like it. Because honestly, I feel so stupid for putting off watching these films, and I think it was just that whole stubborn thing that I've had for years. I'm not going to do that anymore. If somebody recommends something to me, I'm going to give it a go, even if it's just 5 minutes of my time. I am going to give it a go. So let's talk about Studio Ghibli. Well, first, actually, I'm going to talk about what I'm actually doing here. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to draw freehand today. And then in the last video, what I did was I printed off the image, reversed it, draw around kind of deconstructing the image, and then I transfer it onto the watercolor paper. It's a little tip if you want to kind of get, your proportions right. And it's not, I wouldn't really class it as cheating, it's just helping yourself out a little bit, because what you've got to do is you've got to have the eye to know which bits to take out. You don't go through every single detail. It's just the shape of the eye, the shape of the nose, a basic line, just to kind of give yourself a bit of a guide. And I am going to go through that maybe in a studio Sundays of how I can do my portraits and how I kind of how I find how I do it and stuff like that. So I think that might be interesting for some people. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the materials that I'm using too. So I love Derwent Pencils. I've actually got another video, I'll put the link down below, where I actually go to the Derwent Pencil Museum. I'm so into Derwent Pencils. I've always used them. They are my favourite pencil to use. So I'm using these. I'm using a 2B because I don't know, I just like 2Bs. I like the darkness of them, and they're quite soft, so I quite like that. Also Cotman watercolours, that's what I'm going to be using today, is the Cotman. I think it's a 46 set. I'll also put the link down to that. I've got the links in other videos because that's the main one that I use. I don't like using really the liquid colours that much. I do like half pans. I feel like you can control the pigment a little better with that. I always find that I just end up squeezing loads out the tube. But what's really good about the liquid watercolor is you can kind of mix a little bit better, I think, and you do get a higher pigment. But yeah, I'm going to be using my half pans for this set today. I actually really enjoy drawing this freehand. It's very rare that I'll just sit and just do a little doodle. And this is kind of rekindling my love of just sitting and just making art just for the sake of making art and not having that pressure. With uni, I always find that there is an added pressure, and it's because it's more this is your career, this is what you're doing, this is just your serious art. And it's I think I need to try and get out of that mindset, because I find that quite stifling and quite panic inducing. It's just, yeah, and this is just helping me loosen up. So thank you for anyone watching and coming along on these little journeys where I talk about films and TV. It really, really, really helps my mental health, and I love making them. Another thing I will say is this video is going to include spoilers. I am talking about the plot from Spirited Away, and I will be going into full detail. So if you have not seen it, or you don't want any kind of spoilers and you're thinking about watching it, please stop the video. Don't go any further. This is going to include spoilers, and I am sorry. I'm sorry if you skip forward or anything like that, but I'm putting it out here that there is going to be spoilers. I'm talking about major plot lines. I'm talking about my thoughts on everything. So I'm putting that out there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So with all that said, let's get on to the plot of Spirited Away. So the film starts with this young girl called Chihiro. She's in the back seat of her mum and dad's car and then moving to a new area. And she's got like this bunch of flowers that her friend's given her, and like her mum and dad are like talking to her in the back and just being like, you know, like, oh, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. And she's like really upset. There was one bit that I thought was like kind of like mad, where she was just like, I finally get a bunch of flowers and it's a goodbye present. And like her mum's like, your dad got you a rose once, and she was like, that was a single rose. And it just like, I don't know, it just seemed like a bit of a weird thing to focus on. It was just bizarre. So they're driving up and they can see the house, and her dad's like, what's the shortcut? Let's like go down there. So they're driving, they're like, but Chihiro's like, I don't really think that's a good idea. We should just go and see the movies. And they're like, calm down, it's fine, honey, like chill. So they're driving down this like long track and it's all overgrown. And then they get to this like wall with like a tunnel, and there's like a bollard so you can't drive your car over. So they want to get out the car, like the mum and dad, and they want to go and have a little explore and a little look. Kind of like what you do if you move to a new area. Don't really know why you would do that though if you've got movers waiting at your house. Like, I don't really get that. Don't get their emotions, don't get the decisions. So Chihiro like doesn't want to go, and she's like, Mum, Dad, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And like, as a parent myself, I think if Jackson was like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it, please don't make me go, please don't make me go, I think I'd probably listen to him and be like, okay, hon, like, well, you know what, let's go to the house, let's all get settled. Because it's like, if you've done a long car journey with a kid, I can't see them wanting to like go and explore. If they don't want to, just like go back to the house, chill out, have a cup of tea, you know, relax. But like her parents, like I said to Red, I was like, I think her parents are dickheads. Like I really, really do. But then Red made a point being like, they could be getting brought in by magical like spells, and you don't know, getting drawn in by the magic. They might not be in their right mind. So I was like, okay. So they go through the tunnel, and then like her dad's like, this looks like one of these old abandoned theme parks. And apparently there's like loads of like abandoned theme parks in Japan. So like they're going and they're like exploring, and like they go and there's like this little town, and they can smell food, and they're like, that food smells great. And like Chihiro's like, I don't know guys, no one's around here, like I don't think it's a good idea. So like there's all like this massive big buffet, and my mum and dad are like, cool, let's just like help ourselves. Who does that? Who does that? There's like nobody around. It looks abandoned. You're gonna eat food off a random table where there's like, you know, you don't know who the owner is. This place looks like there's not been a person here in years, and it's like in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere with no roads. That's a good idea. Eat the food. I don't know. Might not even be a business. Could just be like a random person living there. Who knows? Anyway, so like her mum and dad are like, oh, don't worry, just like Chihiro, help yourself. Like dad's got credit cards and cash, just like sit down. And like her dad just seems like the epitome of like American consumerism. And I think that's like a big theme like throughout this film. I don't think it definitely is a theme throughout this whole film, is like greed and how it's bad, and like the consequences of, you know, of greed. So the mum and dad sit down, they're starting to eat at the buffet, and like Chihiro like goes for like a little wander, and like she goes for like a little wander around this corner, and there's like this giant bathhouse, and she's like, whoa, what is this bathhouse? Like, this is crazy. Then there's like a boy just standing there like looking at her, and he's like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. You need to go. You need to get across the river. So she like freaks out and runs. Obviously, you got this like guy screaming in your face, like telling you to get out. So she's like running. She runs back to her mum and dad. They're sat at the buffet table. They've turned into pigs. And she is like, whoa, my God, that's crazy. I almost did like a pig sound. I was like, whoa. Almost did like a pig sound. So she's like, what is going on? She starts running towards the river. So where there was a field before, there is now this giant river, and she can't get across. So she's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Then the boy from the bridge is like there. And she's like, I feel like I know you. And he's like, I feel like I know you too. My name's Haku. Don't worry, I'm a friend. And there's like this bird in the sky with this woman's face. And he's like, that bird's looking for you. So we need to get you back to the bathhouse. Otherwise you're going to get turned into a pig as well. And she's like, oh God, okay. So they get back to the bathhouse and they're going to cross the bridge with all these spirits. And Haku's like, right, I'm putting a spell on you. Magical spell is going on you. Like, don't worry, girl. Hold your breath. If you breathe, though, everyone's going to, like, find out and we're going to be, like, done for. So you better not breathe. So they get to the end of the bridge and there's, like, this little frog dude is like, Haku. This poor girl can't breathe anymore. Like, they're standing there still. You know, you're holding your breath for that long. She can't be doing that. No. So she like breathes and the little like frog guy's like, a human, and then like Haku like stuns him with his magical powers, and it's like, oh, you need to run down this way. And he says to her, you got to run down to the boiler room, you got to talk to the guy who works there, Hamaji, and ask him for a job. If you like ask him for a job, you won't get turned into a pig, and like everything's gonna be like right as rain, like it's gonna be fine. So she goes down to the boiler room. It's like the side of like this like giant bathhouse, and there's like a staircase that like wraps around, and there's like a sea on one side, and there's a train and everything's shaking. She's like, ah, but she makes it. She gets down there. Hamaji is there, right? And he's got 4 arms. He's got these like mad like steampunk looking glasses. He's got this big bushy like mustache. It kind of reminds me of Heihachi from the Tekken games, if anybody's like played those. Obviously everyone must have played Tekken. It's like been out for years, and if you haven't, what have you been doing with your life? Play Tekken. Anyway, so they're in like this boiler room, and there's like these little soot balls, which are the cutest things I've ever seen in my life, honestly. They're like these little fuzzy black things, like little eyes and little tiny little drawn like hands and legs, and they're carrying coal and throwing it into the fire. And like he basically, Hamaji, he controls all the water that goes to the bathhouse and like, you know, kind of sorts all that for people. So she's like, excuse me, I need a job. And he's like, I have no use for you. I have no people to give jobs to. And he's like being like that mean. And Haku did warn her. He was like, even if he says no, keep pressing him because he will give you a job. Like, he'll sort this out for you. So one of the little like soot people, she's kind of like stood there like out the way, like panicking a bit, and one of the little soot people comes and like it can't carry the soot. It's like too like, we can't carry the coal, it's too big. So she picks up the coal and she like pulls it over. It's like that heavy, and like throws it in the fire. Then all the other little soot people start like pretending that they can't carry their coal, and Hamaji's like, you're driving me mad, go stand over there, like, ugh. So that happens, and then Lynn comes in, who's like this woman who works in the bathhouse, and she's like giving him some food, and she's like, a human, like she is not supposed to be there. And Lynn is like freaking out. She doesn't know why she is there. She's like, girl, everyone's looking for you, like this is bad. And then Hamaji's like, can you please take her to your baba? She needs to get a job. And Lynn's like, I'm not risking my life for this situation, like no. And then Hamaji's like, she's my niece, which is so cute that he puts himself out for her. And it's like, he's had this really scary demeanor, and then it's like, oh no, he's lovely, he's like that sweet, he's gonna help her. Like, he was always gonna help her. He just kind of like wanted to like test her first a little bit. So Lynn takes her to go and see your baba, who runs the bathhouse, and they're like walking through the bathhouse, and like this must have been like so stressful for her. I'm acting like they're like real people, these are like cartoons, but like in my head they're real. So they're walking through the bathhouse, and there's all these spirits, and she's like looking around like, what is going on? Oh. So they go in the lift, and there's like this like giant radish spirit, which is like this really tall, white, fluffy monster thing with like giant jowls and like long arms. And it's like, that's like the only time you really see this like radish spirit, but it's such an iconic image, and like they think that like he's like chasing them, but like I don't really get it. It's like mad, you get like this real feeling, but then like, yeah, he's like never mentioned again, so it's like, okay, whatever. So just to talk about the drawing a little bit, like what I'm actually using here, so I've got obviously my watercolours, but I use a heat tool. If anybody's been wondering what the pink thing is that I keep bringing into the picture every now and then, especially in the last video, that is a heat tool. And what I use that for is to kind of dry the layers as I'm going. A lot of the time, like when you're doing watercolour, like the annoying thing is it just takes so long to dry. With this kind of just speeds up the process, and then you can kind of like bang out your watercolours like really quick, and you don't have to kind of wait for that process of like the drying and everything like that. Another thing with watercolour as well, it is quite forgiving, and once it's dry you can work back into it. Like I was saying when I made the watercolour palette, also if you haven't watched that, please go watch that. It was so much fun making that. Watercolour is reactivated when you put water on it. So if you make a little bit of a mistake, if you just work into it, it kind of fades. So you can kind of keep layering and keep going over it and kind of keep, working over, which is great, especially when you have used the colour on a face like I did with no face. I kind of used, it was too warm. I wanted something that was a bit more of like a cool tone, and I used something quite warm. So I just carried on like working into that, and it eventually kind of like went the way I wanted it to go. That's another thing. I think I might try some gouache, because what I found with doing this is that it does go quite wishy-washy, and I think sometimes I do want a bit of colour like to be more opaque and not have that wishy-washiness to it. Wishy-washiness is like my thing. I love it when you've got like wishy-washy backgrounds or just like a hint of colour, but for certain things I think I do want some full coverage, so I think I'm going to invest in some more gouache paints. I'm quite interested in using gouache half pans. I've never ever used a gouache half pan, so I'm going to see if I can try and get some of those. But yeah, let's go back to talking about Spirited Away. So Chihiro gets up to Yababa's like quarters, which by the way are regal AF. They are like a queen's boudoir. There's like mirrored halls and all these beautiful like pots. It's gorge, and like Yababa like basically like said, "Come here, girl," and like drags her through like the hall magically, and like her arms are like out to the side, and she's like like flying, like it's crazy. So she goes in, she's like, "Give me a job," and she's like, "No," and she's like, "Give me a job," and she's like, "No," and then she basically makes her sign a contract. She takes her name. And that's the thing, is like when she takes your name, you start to forget who you are, and you start to forget about leaving and forget about escaping, and then you're there forever. Like, how terrifying is that? Also, let's talk about like Yababa's design. She is one heck of a monster. Like, she is like, she's got like this giant bun, she's got like this giant nose, and she's got like this giant like mole on the side of her head. By the way, her eyeshadow is amazing. She has like this like sort of like violet, kind of very like pale, like not violet, more like pale lilac eyeshadow. It's gorge, with like these giant gold earrings, and like she has so many jewels on. Like, she has got like a ring on every single finger. It's like crazy. She kind of like looks like Minan if Minan had like dark hair. So like she gives her a job and like basically sends her down to the bathhouse to go and like, get a job, and nobody wants to work with her. Haku like basically takes her down, and like Haku's like, "Don't address me, and if you are addressing me, address me as Master Haku." So she's like, what's that change? Like, that makes no sense. Like, he was so nice to me before, and now he's so horrible. So they get into the room, and like the guy who runs the bathhouse is just like, "She stinks. She smells like a human." Ugh. And everyone's like, "No, it's okay. Like, when she starts eating our food, like she like won't smell anymore. Like, it's sound." And then they assign her to Lynn, who's the lady who took her up to see Yababa in the first place. And even she's like acting like she doesn't want to like have her. And then when they kind of get away from everyone, she's like, "Oh, I thought that wasn't gonna work." And it's like the emotional whiplash. Like, poor Chihiro just ends up in tears, like on the floor. Like this has just been a stressful day for her. Not only has she moved to a different area, her mum and dad made her walk to this weird abandoned like, theme park, and now she's trapped there for the rest of eternity, and her mum and dad are pigs. Like, that is a lot to take in, especially for like a small child. Like, that is a lot. Like, oh, I feel so bad for her. And like Lynn's like this woman wakes up and she's like, what's all this noise? Like, be quiet. And she's like, "It's the new girl. She's sad." It's like, obviously she's sad. Obviously. I just feel like so bad for her. Like, honestly, it's like, oh. So they go to bed, and the next day she wakes up and she's like, "I'm gonna go and try and like sneak out of this place. Like, oh my god, like this is too much." Goes down to the boiler room, she gets her shoes, and she's like, "Right, okay, I'm out." And one thing I forgot to mention, that when she was like walking across the bathhouse originally, there was like this spirit called No Face. He's actually a monster, and he's on the bridge, and he's kind of opaque in the middle and kind of goes out to translucent, and he has this like mad mask. This is who I'm actually drawing today, and I've also got Chihiro there as well. It's like this like iconic scene, which I'll talk about later on. And he kind of like notices her, and then when she gets out in the morning, he's still on the bridge, and he kind of like looks at her, and she just kind of like runs past him, but he's like, whew, creepy. And then as she's there, she hears someone behind her, and it's Haku, and he's like, come with me, and he's like, you must only come here with me, like don't come here on your own, because you're gonna get turned into a pig as well. And he goes to take her to her mum and dad, and she's just obviously so upset, and she's trying to talk to them, and they're just not responding, you know, because the pigs, and they don't understand her. And it's like, oh, this is so sad. So he gives her some food, like Haku gives her some food, and like tells her, like, you know, build your strength up, like it's gonna be okay. And like he gives her clothes, and he's like, you need to keep hold of your clothes, because this is like part of your identity, and this will help you remember who you are. And in the pocket there's a card which has her name on it. She's been given a new name called Sen. So from this point in the video, I'm going to refer to her as Sen. And if I do refer to her as Chihiro, I do apologise. But I'm going to try and just refer to her as Sen. So she's got a card, and it says like Chihiro, and she's like, that's my name. And he's like, yeah, keep hold of that, because that'll like help you remember. So it's time for her first day at work in the bathhouse. So she goes back, and like Lynn's like, where the hell were you? Like, I'm really worried. Like, don't run off like that. So she's like, sorry, I won't do it again. And they get to work. And it kind of reminds me of like, you know, when you start a new job and everything just goes wrong and you don't know where anything is. And it's like, where do I put my coat? Where do I put my cups? I don't know where to go. Who do I talk to? It really has like a feel of that. So she goes down, and she's like chucking some water out the side, and she sees No Face, who's like standing like sort of like in the darkness and the rain, like staring at her. And she's like, do you want to come in? And he like doesn't answer her. And she's like, okay, I'll just leave the door open for you. If you want to come in, you can come in. Bye. And like leaves, and like No Face like comes in. Then she's told she's got to go clean this like giant like tub here in Lynn, and this like tub is like covered in gross slime, and it's like bleh, and it's huge. It's like, how do you expect like a little girl to clean this? Like, are you crazy? And Lynn's like, you gotta go talk to the guy who runs the bathhouse. He'll give you like these like tabs, and we'll be able to get some like nice like mineral water, and we'll be able to like, you know, clean this bath properly. And the guy's like, I'm not giving you anything. Like, I'm not giving you that. You crazy? These are like expensive. Like, I'm not giving you this. And then No Face like shows up, and he's like, it's really cute, because it's like almost like he kind of imprints on her, and he's just like, I'm gonna help you, and like reaches over, grabs these one of these tabs, and just gives it to her. And she's like, yay, runs back, and they get the water in. It's like really cool. They put it in the wall, and this like thing comes down, and it fills the bath full of water. Then No Face like shows up again, and he has got like so many of these tabs. Like, he must have about like 15 of these like tab things that he's like nicked for her. And she's like, I don't need them, and he just like drops them and like leaves her. The tub is starting to overflow by this point, and she's like distracted. Well, as all this is going on, there's a stink spirit coming into the bathhouse, and everyone's like, I'm not dealing with that. It's like this giant blob of like goo. If anyone's seen in The Labyrinth, it kind of reminds me if the Bog of Eternal Stench walked. Like, that's kind of like what it reminds me of. So he's like coming in, and they're like, right, Sen, you can deal with that because you're new and you know no better. You can deal with like this. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. It's like this giant tub, and I'm a tiny little girl, but that's cool. I'll deal with this stink spirit because no one else has got the guts to do it. So they get into the tub. She gets him in the tub, and she's pouring like the water on him and stuff. And like she ends up like falling into the tub. It's like really bad. She's like, his like stink is like overflowing. It's like almost like pus like coming off his body, and it's like flowing out of the tub, and everyone's like watching her, and she's got loads of these tabs, and she's like, right, that's it, I'm gonna pour loads of these mineral things on him, and it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be good, and he is gonna be clean. I'm gonna clean this guy. So when she falls in the tub, it's a little bit frightening because everyone kind of thinks she's like drowning, or this like spirit's not going to realize that she's there, and it's like gonna like kill her. So he lifts her up, and then she kind of notices that there's like something stuck in him. So she starts to pull and pull and pull, and then she pulls out all of this pollution. And it's like, oh my gosh, and it turns out that it wasn't a stink spirit at all. It was a river spirit that had got polluted, and that's the reason why he looked like that. And then he said, thank you, gives like Sen this little present. It's like this like weird like nodule rock that kind of almost like looks like a mushroom. And then he leaves like loads of gold behind. So everyone is just like, Sen, you're amazing. You are amazing. There's so much gold. Like, you have saved a river spirit from pollution. You're amazing. It's so cute. Like, everybody's there like waving and clapping for it. Even the radish spirit is like there like woo, like waving and stuff. So like it's nighttime, everyone's chilling, and while everybody is in bed, No Face is lurking around the bathhouse. And he's like there, and he's like this little frog guy from the start. Like, he's like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he like throws some gold at him. Then No Face eats him. He just eats him, swallows him whole. But then No Face starts to talk with his voice. It's really bizarre. I'm like, I can't decide whether it's No Face using his voice box or whether it's like the frog talking through No Face to kind of get what he wants. I'm a little bit confused. So No Face, every time he eats something, gets bigger and bigger. And he's like sitting on top of one of the partitions, almost like a crow, like looking down. And the guy who runs the bathhouse is there, and he's like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And like he offers him some gold, and he's like, wake everybody up. I want to have a bath and a party. And it's again like going back to like this theme of greed, of being like, this is like, you know, money will get what you want, and it really kind of like doesn't. And it's kind of like trying to teach you to like not be greedy. So Sen wakes up, and like everybody is like gone, and there's like a big kerfuffle like downstairs. And Lynn comes over to her, and she's like, there's a guest here, like he's giving away gold like crazy. And she's like, no, I'm gonna go find Haku. And like, it's so funny, like No Face is sat in that giant tub, and everyone's like bringing like loads of dishes to him, and he's like eating like whole fish, and he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and everyone's like freaking out. And it's almost like everyone's just like begging for his gold and begging for his money, and he's like, I shall eat more, have some more gold, have some more gold. But like Sen's like the only one who like doesn't want to do that. She just wants to find Haku, and she just wants to like, you know, just get out of this place, and she's not like taken up by frivolous things. She goes back into her bedroom. She's on the balcony, and then she sees Haku in the distance, but he's like, there's something's wrong. Like, he's like, there's all these like weird like paper like birds like fighting him and following him, and it almost looks like, they kind of remind me of like, you know, that statue Angel of the North. They kind of look like that, but kind of cross with a paper airplane. It's like bizarre. So like he like flies into her bedroom, and there's like these birds are like trying to get in afterwards. She covers like, she closes the door, and Haku is like covered in blood, like completely covered in blood, and there's like blood splattering everywhere. And this is like one of the things that Red says about the Studio Ghibli films. It's like they're not for kids, but they are quite graphic, and like some of the themes can be slightly like adult and slightly serious, but like in like a PG way, like not like in an inappropriate way. I wouldn't say it's inappropriate. So like, say for instance, like this scene where there's like blood everywhere and like blood splattering, like you wouldn't necessarily get that like in a Disney film, but like I think that's what I like about these Studio Ghibli films, is they're quite realistic, and they're quite like, you know, true to life, and like what life is actually like, you know, if you've had a fight, there may be blood, you know, big deal, we bleed. So Haku is there, and he's all like, he's in his dragon form, and she's like, oh my god, like trying to like calm him down, and he like flies out of the room, and he's like hitting the sides of the buildings, and like she's just like, right, I need to go and check him. So she runs down to the bathhouse where everybody is still like fawning over No Face, because he's like, you know, giving gold away like crazy. It's so funny because he's like coming up the stairs, and obviously now by this point he's like huge, and the guy who runs the bathhouse is doing this little song where he's like, welcome the rich man, do, 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 do. And he's doing this little dance with a fan and everyone's like trying to beg him for tips of gold. And it's like, why are you guys begging for tips of gold? You guys ain't going anywhere. You guys are locked in this bathhouse forever. I don't get why you guys are begging for gold. It's so funny. But then like Sen like walks like in the way and like the guy's like, move out of the way. And like he basically like tells him like just moves into one side. And like No Face is like trying to give her gold and she's like, I don't want any gold. I don't want any gold. I've just got to go find my friend. And like he drops all the gold and he's like, sorry, she's just a human. And then he's like, wipe that smile off your face. You're still smiling. And then eats this guy whole. And then he also grabs like a woman and like swallows her. And he's like, get to this point now where I'm like, bitch, you getting that big? I don't think you're gonna get out of this building. Like, if you keep eating, it's like how I feel at the moment. I keep eating so much, I'm just like not gonna be able to get out the front door soon. So like that happens, and then Sen basically runs upstairs and she like needs to go and find like Haku to see if he's okay. One of these paper things though gets stuck to her back and is like attached to her, like to try and like see like what's going on. And like Yababa's like weird bird with like the weird bird face of like it's weird. It's like a bird that flies around and the bird has her face. Yababa also has like these like 3 heads that kind of like all like go blah, 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 and they bounce around like these like 3 like weird bouncing heads. Like they're like there too. And she also has like a giant baby, like this giant baby who's like so cute. It reminds us of Jackson when he's like cuddled up in a blanket, like he's like ew. It's like really cute. I really love the giant baby. So when she gets into the room, she actually gets into the baby's nursery and she kind of hides underneath some big pillows with the babies as well. And Yababa's in there and she's like, I've got to go, something's going on in the bathhouse, and like disappears. And then as Sen like tries to like get out into like Yababa's quarters, the baby's like, no, I want you to play with me, and if you don't play with me, I'm gonna cry, and then mum's gonna come up here and she's gonna kill you. Like, it gets dark like super quick. But she manages to get outside into the living room, and Haku is lying on the carpet, and like just before like Yababa like leaves, she's basically like, it doesn't matter, like if he dies, like whatever, I'll just get someone new. And like there's a hole in the floor like in front of the fireplace, and like that's where they've got him, because it's like, okay, if he dies, we're gonna just like shove him down the garbage chute like it's sound. And like when Sen like runs over to him, the bird like starts like attacking her, and all the heads are like blah, 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 blah. It's like really weird. And then the baby comes out and it's like, I'm not afraid of germs, because like basically Yababa keeps this baby in the nursery and tells him like if he leaves, like he's gonna have like germs and it's not gonna be good for him. It's like really sad. It's like, oh. So the weird little paper thing that's been on her back transforms basically into what you think is Yababa. Turns out it's Yababa's twin sister Zaniba, and it's like, whoa. And the baby's like, mama? And she's like, you're stupid and fat, which I think is like really cruel. Like, it's a baby, like chill out, okay? Like, you look just like Yababa. Like, what there might be like some color differences like in your nail varnish or like, you know, your rings. I can't remember what the exact, you know, differences are, but like, come on, leave the baby alone. And then she's like, what can we mess around with here? And then turns the baby into a rat, and then turns her weird bird thing into like this weird little crow, and then turns the bouncing heads into the baby. So it's like keeps like, you know, what's her face? Yababa keeps her like, you know, occupied and doesn't realise that anything's like wrong. So she's explaining that basically the reason why she's like attacking Haku is because he stole her golden seal. And she's like not happy, and like poor like Sen is just like, no, like what's happening? And then like he whips his tail, because obviously he's like in pain, like he whips his tail and then cuts her in two, and she's like, I've got a paper cut, and then like disappears. And then Haku like falls down the chute and like takes like Sen with him, and the like little rat and the little bird like go down too, and it's like, and then they're in the boiler room. So when the chute like leads to the boiler room, they all kind of like land, and like Sen's got hold of Haku's head, and she's like trying to like, get him to like calm down and just to be chill. And then he throws up the golden seal, which is coated in like this black goo, which then turns into like a weird slug. And Hamaji, the boiler man's like, get that slug, get that slug. So Sen's like chasing this slug, and she stamps on it, and he's like, that's evil, they're bad luck, put your finger and thumb together. And then he kind of like cuts between her finger and thumb and goes whoosh, and goes, evil be gone. So that like protects her against like the evilness that was there. And then like Haku, it looks like really bad. He's turned from his dragon form into like his human form, and they're like, oh no. So she's like, maybe if I take this golden seal back to Zeniba and apologize on Haku's behalf, he'll be okay. So I'm gonna do that. And Hamaji, the little hun that he is, gives her some tickets so she can get the train to Zeniba's house. He tells her if she gets this train though, it's only one way, and she's like, that's fine, I will walk back. I need to try though to make sure that he's okay. Lynn comes down and she's like, did you let this like spirit in called No Face? He's like a monster. Did you let him in? Because he's telling everybody upstairs that you let him in and he is causing mischief. And she's like, oops, I did. That were me. Whoopsies. So she's like, right, you gotta come and deal with this. So she's like, cool, I'm gonna go to get the train to go to Zeniba's house, but I will deal with No Face first. So she goes upstairs and like Yubaba is like ticked off. And she's like, what is this rat on your shoulder and what's this bed? She doesn't even recognize her own baby. And it's like really sad. This like sad little moment where it's like, oh my God, you don't even know it's your baby. So she sends her in to go see No Face. No Face is like the size of a house by this point. And he is trying to like give her gold. He's like trying to give her all sorts. And she's like, no, I don't want any of that. I just need to go and sort this thing out with Zeniba. Like, I just need to try and save my friend. I don't need your gold. I don't need all of your, like, materialistic stuff that you've got. I don't need, like, your giant plate of hams or this dead fish. Like, I don't need this. I just don't need it. So she's, like, looking at him like, oh, this is, like, not good. I'm going to give him this thing that the river spirit gave him. It was, like, this such a beautiful act of, like, selflessness. And gives him this like mushroom thing, and he eats it and he's like, what have you done to me? And he's throwing up all sorts of stuff, and it's really not good. Like, he's like, what have you done? And he starts chasing her through the entire bathhouse, but the aim is to get him out. Like, let's get him out. And he is like chasing her like crazy, and they finally get outside, and to this point he actually ends up throwing up the people that he ate, and he also throws up the frog as well, and he's like following her to the train station. It's like, what are you doing? Everything's on water, so Lynn is in this little boat and she's like, it's cool, like, let's get you to the station. This creep's following us though, oh God. And she's like, he won't hurt us. And like, how cute is that of like Sen? She like still trusts this giant monster. She's like, she just knew that he was polluted. And I love the fact that like there's this like whole thing with like materialism and greed and how pollution is bad, and like polluting the brain with materialistic things and polluting the mind and the body and the soul. It's like a real kind of like deep thinking bit in the film. I just love it. It's great. So she gets on the train and she like even says to No Face, like, come onto the train. And this is the scene that I'm painting. It's like them two sat just like on the little side. I did leave out the rat and the bird, and I kind of wish I hadn't now, and I wish I'd drawn them. But like that was like my main focus. I wasn't gonna do the bench. Like I've drawn in like the red chair that they're sat on, and I've kind of gone a little bit mad with it. And this is one of my problems when I'm doing something like this, is I should just leave it. Just draw a little bit and leave it, but no, I go full colour, and then halfway through I realise that it's completely off centre and the horizon is kind of going up, so I have to like trim it down. So it didn't turn out exactly like the way I wanted it to turn out, but that's the whole thing with this. It's just, let's chill, let's be happy, let's just draw for the sake of drawing and just, you know, just create. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about this, but I think if I did it again, I would probably maybe just draw No Face and kind of like, I might have another go at it, and I might post it up on Instagram or something. So let's see what happens. So while Sen's on the train, she's like on her way to Zeniba's, Haku wakes up and he's like there with Hamaji, and he's like, you look really great. And he's like, the last thing I remember is everything was dark. I could hear Sen's voice, and now I feel like better than ever. Like I feel like Peachy Keen Jelly Bean. Like I feel fab. So it turns out he was like, it's love. It was her love. That's the reason why you feel like great. So he goes up to Yubaba and he's like, she is slagging Sen off something wicked. She is like, this gold won't even cover the damage that that monster like made. Like, oh, we must punish her. And like the guys that got eaten are there, and they're like, no, like she saved us. And she's like, if I'm not being funny, she let it in. She just fixed her own problem, which to be fair with you, is true. It is true. So Haku's like there, and she's like, how dare you speak to me in like an insolent tone, because he's just like, he's had it with you, Baba. Like, he has just had it. And he's like, you don't even realize that the thing that you cherish and love the most is like not here. And she like instantly looks at the gold, and she's like, no, the gold's fine. Then realizes that her baby is the 3 jumping heads and freaks out. And he's like, your sister has got your baby. And she is freaking out, and he's like, right, I'm gonna go and get her, but you need to like, you know, do something for me. When I get back, you need to rip up Sen's contract and let her go and turn her mum and dad from pigs back into humans. And she's like, yeah, I'll do that on one condition. You need to let me test Sen one more time. And it's like, hold on a second. It's a bargain. You can't come back with another thing. Like, he's gonna go and get your baby. Like, I thought your baby was the thing that like meant the most to you. You just want to get it back and be like, anything. But no, she still wants to like take it like one step further. Don't get him. So they finally, Chihiro Sen, no face in the gang, they finally get to Zeniba's house, which, by the way, is the cutest little cottage in the middle of the woods. It's so adorable. I'm like, I want to live in a cottage in the woods. That's what I want. So she finally gets there, and like Zeniba is like, she's kind of like, I love her house so much. There's so many little plants like hanging up. It's so cottagecore. It's unbelievable. It's like, oh. So Zeniba lets them in, and she's like, I'm here to apologize for Haku. Like, I'm so sorry. Here's your golden seal. And Zeniba's like, do you even know what this is? And she's like, yeah, it's your golden seal. It's super magical. I'm super sorry. Haku's sorry too. And then she's like, where did my magical spell go off this? And she was like, oh, that black thing? Oh yeah, like I squished it. And then she like burst out laughing, like, you squished it? That wasn't my magical curse. That was something that your Baba put in Haku to control him. And you squished it? Like, she finds it like hilarious. And it's like, oh my gosh, Haku's been being controlled this entire time by your Baba. That's so sad. And she's like, no, my magical curse has been broken. Like, the only thing that can break mine is love. And it's like, oh, she loves him so much that it broke the curse. It's so cute as well. It's like, she goes, can you please turn these guys back? And she's like, oh, that spell wore off like ages ago. If you two want to change back from being a rat in a bed, you can do that. You can just change yourself back. And they were both like, no. But I think it's really cute that they want to stay as like a little rat and a little like raggedy bird. I think it's like adorable. So like they're sat like having like some tea and biscuits. Like, do you know what? In this lockdown, that is like something that brings me a lot of joy, is just sitting down with a cup of tea and having some biscuits. We got some shortbread the other day, and honestly, just having some shortbread biscuits. Oh, we got fig rolls as well. And like now I'm just like, no, I need a mid-afternoon snack. I want to sit down and have my cup of tea and my bickies. Like, just gives me a little like boost before tea. I like love it. I think I'm just gonna blame this film for me having tea and biscuits, because honestly, after seeing them like sitting down and having like this high tea, I now want to have high tea. I want to have people over and be like, come round guys, I've got a pot of tea on and a cake and some little finger sandwiches and some bickies. Like, come round and have some tea and have like proper tea. That is something I want to do, because I feel like I'm kind of doing that by myself. But it'd be nice to like actually have something, have scones, like make scones. Oh my god, I want scones. I might make some scones this afternoon because I've got everything in to make them. I might do that actually. No, that's a plan. I'm doing it. I'm making scones so I can have tea and a scone. Oh, I've got no butter though. I've got no jam. I'm gonna have to go to the shops. I'm just gonna have to go. I'm just gonna have to do it. I'm just gonna have to go and brave this whole situation just so I can have tea and crumpets. Tea and crumpets. Tea and scones. I'm losing my mind. Oh my god. And clotted cream. I'm just going to do an Asda shop. I'm just going to Asda shop. It's fine. It's fine. So she's basically talking like about her mum and dad and like how they've been turned into like pigs, and like Zeniba's like, I'm sorry, like I won't be able to help you with that. You're going to have to do it on your own. And like she's talking about how like she feels like she's known like Haku before. And she's like, well, when you meet somebody, you never like truly forget them. And then while you think about that, me and your friends are going to go make you something, which is like so cute. And like No Face is there like eating his cake, and the next minute he's like helping Zaniba like spin some yarn, and like they're knitting, and it's really cute. Like they're all sat in this kitchen having like tea and cake and just like doing knitting, and I'm like, oh my god, I really want to be there right now. Like this is like some cottage core to the max shit. Like seriously, this is like, I just want to sit in her kitchen and knit and talk about magical spells. Like that is what I want from my life. Why can't that happen? It will happen. It's gonna happen. Oh my god, it's kind of making me want to like transform my kitchen. I've already got like a few like plants, but I feel like I need to go like more with it, and like, you know, get a thatch roof. Like that's just like, oh, there's this house that I keep seeing around by where we live, and I just keep like looking at it and being like, one day it's gonna go up for sale, and one day I shall buy it. And it's like this cute cottage, and I'm just gonna do it. Like one day it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I keep putting it out into the universe that one day that will be mine. It will be my house. But yeah, so basically they've all like sat there and they've all made Sen this like beautiful hair bobble, and she's like, here, have this hair bobble, it's gonna like protect you and like call me granny from now on. I'm like, how cute is that? Like now she has a granny, and it's like, oh, it's just, I just love it. I just love this scene. Like I think this is like my favorite part in the whole movie, and I think it's just because like the cozy element to it. So like they're all sat there, she's got a magical hair bobble, and then all the windows start to rattle, and it's like, what is going on? Turns out Haku's like come to get them, and Zaniba's like, I forgive you, Haku, I forgive you for everything. So obviously he's like under like a magical spell, and she's like, the only thing to me forgiving you is you've got to make sure that you protect Sen. You've got to protect her. You've got to make sure she's okay. So you know what's really cute about this as well? She's Granny, or Zaniba, she's like, can you, like, No Face, why don't you stay here with me? So like No Face has got like a lovely home and like, you know, the forest with Zaniba. They're gonna have tea and cake every afternoon, and they're gonna knit and, you know, do all sorts of lovely cottagey things, and I just think that's really cute. And I'm like, oh, No Face, I'm so glad that you've got a lovely life. See, meeting Sen and following her and doing all that, it paid off. It paid off. So they decide they're gonna go back, obviously, because, you know, her parents are there. She needs to try and sort out life. And as she's flying over, she's starting to like have this memory of like when she was little and she was in this river, and the river like brought her to safety, like when she was drowning. And she's like sat there like riding through the sky on like Haku's back, and she's like, the name of that river was the Kawaku River, and I think that was you. I think that's your name. And then instantly Haku, like his eyes go dead wide, and he's like, I remember, I am the river spirit. And then like they start like flying through the sky. Like he basically like, he goes from like dragon form, and all of his like fur kind of stands on end and turns into like these like mad like little shards, and he's like back to his human form, and he's like holding her hands, and he's like, that was my name. And she's like, they paved over that river, it's like, now it's like apartment blocks. And he's like, that's why I couldn't find my way home. So like basically like she helped remember him, like he'd saved her before, and like, oh, it's like so lovely. And then they're flying through the sky, and like everyone's there, and the little rat baby's there, and the little bird's there, and Haku remembers who he is, and it's like, yay. Oh, it's just like so lovely. So then they land back at the bathhouse, and they are at the other end of the bridge, and Zaniba is at the other end. Not Zaniba, sorry. Oh my god. Yubaba's at the other end with all of the pigs. So the little baby and the little bear decides that they're going to transform back into like their, you know, real forms. Like Yubaba is like made up with a baby. She's like, yay. And he's like, don't you make Sen cry, because if you make Sen cry, then I'm not going to love you anymore. Like, I'm not going to be your friend. And she's like, oh, but a deal's a deal. She has to do this. And everyone hates, like, Yubaba. Everyone's like, can't believe you're doing this to her. And she's like, no, I made a deal. Like, I will do this final test, like, you know, to prove you wrong. Like, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. So she walks over, and she's, and Yubaba's like, which one of these pigs is your mum and dad? Like, who are they? Which ones? And she's looking at the pigs, and she's like, none of them are my parents. And she's like, is that your answer? And she's like, yeah, none of those pigs are my mum and dad. And she's like, yeah. Well, she wasn't like, yeah, like her contract just like exploded. And like, obviously Yubaba was pissed because it's like, oh no, I've lost a worker. And then like Haku like basically says to her like, you've got to get across, you've got to keep running, you've got to like go, you're free, you've got to leave. And like Haku's like running through the little empty town with her, and he's like, don't look back, like you've just got to keep running, your mum and dad are going to be the other side of that field, don't you worry, like it's gonna be fine, like now you've like achieved it, I know who I am, don't worry. So she's like running through the field. Also, like, how frightening is that? It's like you've gone through this like mad experience, and then you've been told like don't look back. When someone says something like don't do this, you instantly want to do it. Oh, it's like dramatic. Well, she gets there, and then mum and dad are there. Also, her mum and dad, I said this at the start, her mum and dad are assholes. Her mum and dad are massive assholes. Like, she gets there and her mum is like, oh, where have you been? Hurry up. And it's like all that stuff she's done, all that time she's been spent like fighting to try and get them turned from pigs because of their own kind of like, you know, their own stupidity. And then they're like, oh, just so mean. So like they go through the tunnel and they get back to the car, and the car, like the whole area is like super overgrown. The car's all dusty inside. It looks like abandoned, and all the path you can't even see it because of the leaves. So it's like, how long have they been in there? How long? They're saying they're going to go meet the movers. Are the movers even there? How are they going to explain that? It's so confusing. But like, I love the fact that they leave the movie with like, that's like how many things that you need to think about, like what is going on. Like, I just think it'd be really cool to see, like when they get out, is it like a different year? Is it a different time? Oh my god, is there a different family living in that, like, you know, abandoned, like in their house that they were supposed to be moving into? Is it like 2 weeks? Can't be 2 weeks because it was so all overgrown. Who knows? Like, really, who knows? Yeah, it leaves a lot to be like thinking about, but I really hope that you guys enjoyed my video today on Spirited Away. I'm definitely gonna do some more Studio Ghibli drawings and talk about some more Studio Ghibli films. I watched Kiki's Delivery Service not long ago and I am obsessed. I just love how much magic is in these films, and I love how much like witchcraft and stuff like that is in it as well. It's just like, that is just up my street. I'm obsessed. I love it. But yeah, thank you so much for like watching this video, and if you are enjoying these, please like and subscribe. And if you've got any ideas or you'd like to see me review a film and do a little drawing on it, comment down below and let me know, guys. Stay safe, have lots of tea and biscuits, and I love you guys. Bye.